Welcome to Game Domain. After the popularity of our ranking on the 3D Mario games, we wanted to reflect on our favorite 2D games as well. Now, many of these games are classics, not just for Nintendo, but gaming in general. And as such, it was really difficult to get our team to agree. However, we worked through it, so on to the list. Number 11. Super Mario Land. Released for the Game Boy way back in 1989, Super Mario Land's biggest weakness is just how short it is. It's only 12 levels long. It's easy to finish within an hour, even if you've never even played it before. And thanks to the Game Boy's visuals, it also hasn't aged particularly well. It's a little hard on the eyes these days. Now on the upside, this is where Princess Daisy made her debut, and the inclusion of the Gradius-like side-scrolling levels is interesting, even if it does feel a little out of place. A lot of these differences can be attributed to Miyamoto being very hands-off in its development, and while the game was certainly successful enough to have a line of sequels, it's hard to view this one in the same lens as other classics. Number 10. New Super Mario Bros. 2. Now, the second installment of the Super Mario Bros. Series on the 3DS, New Super Mario Bros. 2, didn't do a whole lot different from the previous version, other than the addition of Coin Rush mode, in which you have a limited amount of time to basically sprint through a level collecting as many coins as humanly possible. Now, this release was basically just a glorified DLC. Now, that's not to say it was bad. The levels were fun, and it certainly looked pretty. It really speaks to the high bar we expect from Mario games, that being average just puts a game near the bottom of the list. Number 9. Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins. Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins for the Game Boy makes a lot of improvements from the first Super Mario Land. Stages are much more complete looking. The game is much longer, 32 levels rather than 12, and it also brings us our first appearance of Wario in the Super Mario Bros. Series, who would go on to have his own game in Super Mario Land 3. Ultimately, though, it does suffer from the same problems as the first Super Mario Land. It's still very short, even with the addition of the more levels, and the improved graphics are actually hard to look at while you're moving so quickly across the level. But hey, at least we get Wario out of the deal, right? So, if we could just get Bunny Mario. Number 8. Super Mario Bros. 2, the US version. The USA version of Super Mario Bros. 2 for the original Nintendo is one of the more divisive games in the series. Some say it's among the best, others think it is so different that it can't even really be considered a Mario game. It was responsible for a lot of firsts. The first time you could play as someone besides Mario and Luigi, and the first time an appearance of a slew of characters such as Birdo, Bob-ombs, and Shy Guys. Sure, it was based on a totally different game in Doki Doki Panic, and sure, Nintendo did it because they thought the real SMB2 was too hard for Americans, but those lessened expectations gave the creative team a lot of leeway, and they ended up creating many now beloved characters in the game. Even if it isn't your favorite, it still had a major impact on the series. Number 7. Super Mario Bros. 2, Japan. The real Super Mario Bros. 2 is one of the most sadistic games of my childhood, okay? The warp pipes that send you back a world but give you the option of throwing yourself down a pit instead is the first real moral dilemma that I ever had as a kid. Beyond that, the Japanese version of Super Mario Bros. 2, known as the Lost Levels everywhere else, really expanded on the platforming challenges and puzzles from the first entry in the series. Long pits that you have to jump over blindly, wind blowing you around and messing up your momentum, and an overall increase in difficulty has led Super Mario Bros. 2 to be considered one of the harder platforms from the NES era. It also marks the first time where we have had different physics for Luigi. He jumps higher and his ground physics are a little more slippery. Of course, the lack of two-player mode made for heated arguments from younger siblings around the world. Number 6. New Super Mario Bros. U. For the Wii U, New Super Mario Bros. U made some great changes. It brought back the Super Mario World style overworld map, and with it, a lot of the ideas that made exploring Super Mario World so exciting. Alternate exits, secret areas, and multiple ways to solve the same problems are what made New Super Mario Bros. U a massive step in the right direction for Nintendo after the previous New Super Mario Bros. Entries. Now, New Super Mario Bros. U also added a game mode that promised to be interesting but never seemed to gain any traction, Boost Mode. In Boost mode, a second player using the Wii U gamepad could assist the first player by adding platforms and blocking out enemies. Now, it could have made for some really interesting speedruns, but it just never caught on. Number 5. Super Mario Bros. The classic that started it all. Super Mario Bros. For the original Nintendo has aged much better than a lot of the other early Nintendo games. It's still just as fun to sit down with a controller and speed through the first Super Mario Bros. As it was 5, 10, 20, or even 30 years ago. It's often credited with reinvigorating the console gaming market after the 1983 market crash. And I have to say, I think it deserves that recognition. It was the highest selling console game ever until overtaken by Wii Sports in the late 2000s, and the entire platforming genre is basically molded around what Nintendo did first. Super Mario Bros. Defined the genre, and even at 30 years old is still just as impressive as some of the games being released today. Number 4. Super Mario Bros. Wii. After the revival of the 2D Mario genre with New Super Mario Bros. For the DS, Nintendo brought 2D Mario back to consoles with a Wii release, and it was a major success. One of the best inclusions in this version was simultaneous multiplayer. You could play with up to 4 friends at once and choose to help each other, or, well, more than likely, throw one another into the enemies and pits. Well, what else are friends for? It was also the first game to include the Super Guide system, designed by Miyamoto himself. If players are struggling and die 8 times in a row on the level, Luigi will show them how to progress through safely. Of course, players can interrupt Luigi at any time, but it's nice to know that Miyamoto was looking out for us. Number 3. New Super Mario Bros. Reviving the 2D Mario genre was a risk for Nintendo. Did players even want it, or were they happy with 3D Marios? Luckily for them, there was a massive desire for a return to Mario's roots, and New Super Mario Bros. For the DS was a massive hit, quickly becoming the best-selling DS title ever. In addition to an updated visual style and solid controls, New Super Mario Bros. Includes new power-ups such as the Mega Mushroom, which lets Mario get so large that he can crash through parts of the level, while the Mini Mushroom lets him shrink so small he can access special areas. It was also pretty long for a 2D Mario, spanning 80 levels. Clearly, they learned from the mistakes they made in Super Mario Land. Number 2. Super Mario Bros. 3. Now, if you had a Nintendo growing up, you had Super Mario Bros. 3. It was like an unwritten law. It was the first Mario game to have a world map, and for the first time you had some control over what levels you played and in what order. If you don't like the auto-scroller in World 1, you can just go around it. A wide variety of power-ups and a power-up inventory system allowed you to plan ahead for harder levels and ensure you never had to start a level with nothing. The beautiful art styles of each world pushed the Nintendo in ways no one expected at that time, and the Koopaling airships were each unique and fun to get through. Super Mario Bros. 3 would absolutely be the gold standard of 2D Mario games if it weren't for one particular entry. Number 1. Super Mario World. Bundled with the Super Nintendo, Super Mario World was in literally every house that had a Super Nintendo. Nintendo didn't have to do that though. Super Mario World was such a beautifully perfect game in every way that they could have made people just buy it separately, and it would have sold like crazy. Reviewers loved it, gamers loved it, and over 20 million copies later, it's been heralded as one of the most successful video games ever released. Featuring 72 levels across 9 worlds, not counting the secret areas, Super Mario World felt huge when you played it as a kid because, well, it is. Each of the different worlds looks amazing. The music is catchy and fits everything perfectly, and the introduction of Yoshi felt seamless. I still play this game once a year at least, and it has never gotten old or stale. So, there you have it, our definitive best 2D Mario ranking across the last 33 years of gaming. Let us know in the comments what you liked or disliked the most. And don't forget to follow us, subscribe, like, check out our Patreon. And for Game Domain, I'm Matt, and I will see you later.